is Valley News Live at 4.
Good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. The Fargo Board of Health is back to meeting, trying to figure out what to do about the Delta variant. They met today for the first time since May, and there was a lot to discuss, namely how to stop the spread of the highly contagious variant. Cass County is designated as having a high transmission rate with a 4.7% positivity rate. Board member Chelsea Matter recognized that the issue of how to handle COVID-19 is polarizing, but she reminded the group it's their responsibility to make recommendations to protect the health of the community.
It's not a popularity contest. This is a serious health threat to our community. So whatever recommendations we put forth, just please keep that in mind.
We'll have much more on what the board discussed and what recommendations you can expect tonight on Valley News Live at 6. Today in North Dakota, there are 178 new positive COVID cases, bringing the total number of infections in the state to 959. Cass County continues to lead the state in active cases. 38 people in the state are hospitalized due to COVID. Over in Minnesota, data released today by the State Department of Health shows more than 1,300 new cases were recorded in the last 24 hours. 1 month ago, on July 13th, MDH reported 386 cases. That's nearly 1,000 less than today. The department says the spike is directly related to the Delta variant, which now accounts for at least 81% of Minnesota's new cases. To the forecast, our weekend is looking warm. Here with the first look at tonight is Chief Meteorologist Hutch Johnson. Hutch.
And I'm all smiles because this morning it was anything but warm. There were a few places that snuck down into the mid-30s. You were closer to freezing than to the 40-degree mark, but Langdon, Hallock all in the 30s. Look at Bemidji, 39 degrees there for Babe the Blue Ox as we started out our day. In Fargo, we were in the 40s. Cool flow from the northwest does continue. Those winds out there a little breezy on your Friday the 13th evening. So use extra hairspray as we head into the evening. Now the 50s, the coolest pool of air sliding slowly off to the east. There's a return of the hot air out to the west. That's going to pull its way right back into the valley as we go through your weekend. We'll have details on that, but here's what you need to know for your Friday evening. 77 degrees for that temperature in the early evening hours, slowly falling through to more comfortable 70-degree readings. It's another night where you can leave the windows open at your house and give the air conditioner a break. We will be cool, but we're going to definitely warm things up for the weekend. I'll have hour-by-hour details on what you can expect, Stacy, here in just about, a little while.
Yeah, those 30s can hold on for several months, please.
Yeah, I don't want to do a frost advisory yet.
Right.
That's not in my vocabulary.
All right, thanks so much. The Minnesota DNR says more than 7% of the state is in an exceptional drought classification, with more than 42% in extreme drought. As a result of these conditions, farmers are facing critical weeks ahead as they prepare to harvest crops. The U.S. Ag Secretary visited some of those farmers today.
And that's why at USDA we're focusing on creating incentives for climate-smart agriculture. We saw examples of it here today with the crop diversity, with organic production, but also the capacity of our land to sequester carbon, to store carbon. There are tremendous opportunities to pay farmers for that benefit.
Many farmers say they're worried about the financial hit they will suffer after this dry summer. Cass County, Minnesota deputies say a 3-year-old girl is dead after a 5-year-old boy accidentally shot her this morning. Deputies say it happened just after 4 a.m. at a home near Bena, Minnesota, near Bemidji. Family took the girl to the Deer River Hospital, where she was later pronounced dead. Deputies say they're still investigating. The Valley City Police Department says they're seeing an influx of dogs and cats running loose. They want to remind everyone all dogs and cats are required to be licensed in the city of Valley City. You can buy a license Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the police department for $20. You also have to show proof of current rabies vaccination. If you have any questions, police ask that you call them at 701-845-3110. FEMA has paid more than $1 billion to 150,000 people who have applied for help covering coronavirus funeral expenses. The government provides a maximum of $9,000 per deceased individual and up to $35,000 per application for U.S. citizen who can provide proof their family member died of COVID-19 and had qualified expenses not covered by another source. As far as how long this will last, it's up in the air. FEMA's deputy director says the U.S. government has no projected end date for funeral assistance. U.S. troops have started arriving in Afghanistan to get Americans and their helpers out of the area as the Taliban overtakes much of the country. Only a handful of major cities, including the capital, remain under government control. Roxana Saberi reports.
The Taliban are retaking Afghanistan at lightning speed, raising their flag in city after city, sending U.S.-trained Afghan forces scrambling and showing off the spoils of war. Last night, the insurgents took their biggest prize yet, the country's second-largest city, Kandahar, the birthplace of the Islamic fundamentalist group in the 1990s. Herat, the country's third biggest city, also collapsed. That means the Taliban now control much of Afghanistan's west, south, and north. And this morning, the group released this video claiming to have freed Taliban prisoners in the city of Logar, that's only about 50 miles from Kabul. With the Taliban now well positioned for an attack on the capital, the U.S. announced a significant staff drawdown at its embassy in the coming days, with the help of thousands of troops temporarily deployed from elsewhere in the region.
This is not abandonment. This is not an evacuation. What this is a reduction in the size of our civilian footprint.
But as the U.S. also prepares to withdraw the last of its military forces by the end of this month, many Afghans fleeing the fighting for Kabul feel betrayed. Many of these people fled the Taliban fearing the return to strict Islamic law and brutal violence. And for the millions of young people across Afghanistan who know only life after the fall of the Taliban 2 decades ago, their future and dreams are now in jeopardy. Victoria Fontan is a professor at the American University of Afghanistan.
They feel let down. They feel that everything that they have studied for, worked for, could go to shreds in a matter of a few days.
The U.S. military has been conducting limited airstrikes to back up Afghan security forces, but clearly this support is far from enough. Roxana Saberi, CBS News, Kabul.
The Taliban now holds 14 provincial capitals. The group's resurgence comes after the U.S. spent nearly 2 decades and more than $800 billion trying to establish a functioning Afghan state. One senior expert on Afghanistan for the U.S. Institute of Peace says many experts agree that the withdrawal was inevitable, but says the way it was done left some gaps.
What I think is really shocking is the irresponsibility of the speed of the withdrawal and the lack of planning for contingencies like this one.
The Pentagon says full U.S. troop withdrawal is still on track to be done by the end of this month. We're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the Great Minnesota Get-Together, and with Delta cases surging, there's still a lot of uncertainty about how state fair officials will pull the event off safely. Devon Roming reports.
It's the final stretch before the gates open at this year's Minnesota State Fair.
Happy to see it back. I'm happy to see it back.
And with that comes new guidance from fair officials to keep everyone safe. As of right now, there won't be any mandates in place, but state fair leaders recommend face coverings for anyone not fully vaccinated and wearing one when indoors, regardless of vaccination status.
When I attend, I will be wearing a mask, and I am fully vaccinated, just to keep everyone safe.
How's it going? There's also been talk about whether you'll need to prove you're vaccinated or present a negative COVID test to get into the fair, but that will not be the case.
It's kind of nice that people are able to at least get out and actually be able to enjoy themselves, enjoy the weather, and then actually be able to live their lives again,
While this is welcome news for some,
how's it going?
Others will be steering clear of the fair.
Can you go like this? Show him your shirt. Show him what it looks like. So my nephew's only about 3, so of course he's not vaccinated himself, and he does have asthma, so we have to be extra careful just to make sure we're not risking his health. It just seems like a risky situation, in my personal opinion.
For sure.
A risk Zena Johnson is willing to take, knowing those who make a living on events and gatherings are depending on it.
Yeah, things have actually gotten back to normal now, and business has been really busy.
What did you miss most about not having the state fair last year?
Just having that good positive energy in the air was definitely missed.
Oh, all up in your business.
Are you going? Oh. Okay.
Making this year's get-together one to remember.
I feel like living in Minnesota, going to the state fair is just kind of part of a tradition that we all kind of cherish.
Fair officials say they're watching the COVID numbers closely, and depending on what happens, these policies could change. Although masks aren't required at the fair, they are required on public transportation, so be sure to bring one if you end up taking the bus to the fairgrounds. More than $33,000 was raised for Miracle Treat Day at the historic Moorhead Dairy Queen last month. More than 6,500 blizzards were blended. All of that money raised will go to support the kids at Sanford Children's Hospital. You can help out homeless people in our community by grabbing a brat or a hot dog at Cashwise. The Golden Drive Homeless Kids organization will be selling them at the store on 13th Avenue South in Fargo until 6 tonight and again tomorrow from 10 in the morning until 6. You can get food and a drink for $2. The money raised will go to help the Golden Drive purchase underwear for local shelters, an item shelters say is overlooked and in great need. We have a recall that impacts thousands of vehicles to tell you about. What you need to know is still to come on Valley News Live at 4.
Refreshingly cool overnight. Here's a look at our time lapse. This was from the Devil's Lake area as the stars spun in the sky and the Perseid meteor showers continued. Your hour-by-hour forecast for the weekend looks pretty warm. I'll have details. Join me. Weather is next.